Good afternoon. It is Monday. That John's just on the corner there. That's it. Better. John is here now. Yeah, you're half and half there.
It is cameraman, he's good.
Monday the 27th of March. What a lovely, quiet weekend.
It was, yeah.
In the world of Everton. It was great. Nothing went on. Nothing happened.
Another wonderful weekend without us losing.
We were looking ahead to that weekend, thinking nothing's going to happen this weekend. No game. Very quiet.
We thought the accounts might, didn't we?
Well, yeah. I mean, a certain account came out, but it wasn't what we were expecting.
What's all that chattering in the background?
I don't know. It's our new.
Is it Chloe?
It's not the new intern. It's our other intern who has realised that
they don't realise we're live.
He thinks that we can talk really loud. Basically, after we'd done stuff last week, one type of video for business we're playing, and we'd done our news, and I don't need to hear myself. It came out that
we've been
Everton have been referred to an independent regulator for
regulator.
Well, what is
commission.
He? A commission. Oh,
not a regulator.
Here he is, Mr. Pedantic.
No, because
regulation
is one of the reasons it's come out.
To a commission for a possible
alleged breach
of the rules.
And then we had a load of journalists on Twitter who were briefed by the Premier League saying, well, referral, charge, same thing. So I suppose we could treat it like we've been charged.
Do you think we've been charged?
I think we've been referred to an independent commission. Yeah. But the independent commission will determine whether we're guilty or not. Therefore, we must have been allegedly in breach of the rules. So I think because there's a lot of money involved in this game these days, isn't there? And I think both sides will probably have a King's Counsel, saying the words on their behalf. So I think they're all very cautious.
Yeah.
But I think in practical terms, sounds like we've been charged, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We've got a case to answer, an alleged case.
Are we surprised?
Binary, yes and no. The no bit's easy. We know we've been wasting money like Billy-O. We know that in a very objective sense, if you add the numbers up, we are in excess of 105 million.
Yeah, we know that.
We're not surprised. Yes, we are surprised is we've been told for quite a long time now, good few years, that we've been on the naughty step. Premier League have been checking up on everything that we do.
Yeah.
We clearly got through the end of the 2021 financials without getting sanctioned and basically charged. Yeah. And yet we were above the 105 then. And of course the sanction for that was to go on the naughty step, have all your transactions looked at. You have to commit to doing certain things, and if you don't do them, then you're going to get into trouble, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sure the football club believes it's done all those things, and then right out of the blue, a couple of days before the chief exec of the Premier League needs to go and speak to the government ministerial type people, we get slapped with this. We're referring you to the commission. So that bit's the surprise. Perhaps the timing is the surprise.
Nice.
But overall, no, it shouldn't be a surprise to any Everton fan, should it? You can only be creative with your accounts and your submissions for so long if they're not getting better.
Yeah.
Having said that, we all expect that 2021-22, which is the ones we've been waiting for, Everton, but it looks like we're not going to get them off you, doesn't it?
Should be better.
Yeah, they will be. I think the losses will have at least halved, I would think.
So why? Okay.
So we're going in the right direction, which is what being on the naughty step is all about. So,
yeah. But I mean, what we'll do is we'll get into this a bit more. But the way I see it, I don't see any way Everton have points deducted, none whatsoever. I don't see
this season.
No. Well, I just don't see it at all, John.
Well,
I don't see it at all. I don't think they follow the EFL thing. I think that's nonsense.
Well, it's never happened in the Premier League. Has it? Someone has to be first.
No, they're not. For one thing, they're not points deducting. It's not happening. Two, City will absolutely obliterate the Premier League in any kind of case that they go for. So that's going to finish as well. And three, this is only here because the Premier League are getting looked at themselves. It's a we're going to pretend that we have been doing things correctly and Richard Masters will have to face the question. No, not us. Not us, them. Not us. Not Everton, us from a Premier League perspective.
Yeah.
So we're an easy...
Yeah. We don't need an independent regulator because we're doing it already.
Exactly, right. And the other side, but people mustn't confuse what I'm saying here, because I am not allowing Everton Football Club
off
the hook. This is an embarrassment. It's a further indictment of how poorly we have been run, how poorly people have allowed the situation to get out of hand. They've known about this for a number of years.
Yeah.
And therefore, why was nobody, the adults in the room, why was nobody standing there going, ladies and gents, we can't carry on the way we're carrying on? Because otherwise we're going to breach this, we're going to breach that, we're going to breach the other. If Everton have started to turn the ship, because let's be honest, Rafa Benitez come in and we spent £1.5 million that summer. We then spent money in January. It was offset against Luca Dean.
That's right.
So for a year there was nothing spent, nothing, and players fell off the book. So that should have been an improvement in that year.
Absolutely.
Delhi coming now, whether Delhi's transfer, whatever you want to call it, is in there, I don't know. But the deal that was out for everybody, at everybody's knowledge, and it came from both ends, was that we don't pay anything for him other than wages till he's played 20 games for Everton, which he hasn't played. It was 10 million.
Yeah.
But these books,
you might put that as a provision, but
you might do. But what I've read and what people are indicating, that it is them. That's the season. That's the books, isn't it? That they're not happy with.
No, it's
was it the year before?
No, it's this last year.
Yeah, so it is the Delhi season, isn't it? It's that year.
When did we get him?
And we got him last January, so it's that.
January 22.
Yeah, so
he would be in that.
So he'd be in that thing.
Would be in that.
So that's why I'm saying, but there was no money with that, was there?
No.
Other than wages, whatever they were. So,
but the deal with him doesn't...
But we were on the naughty step then, though.
Yeah.
So if we're on the naughty step, and we did have to get things signed off by the Premier League. In fact, the Delhi... On that day, Everton needed the Premier League to approve that before Everton could confirm it. Hence why it went on longer than people thought, and there was all the stories. Newcastle wanted them and whatever. Everton were waiting for it to be ratified. And then you see the video of Frank Lampard with Delhi. We got it done.
Yeah.
And all that the next day. So the Premier League had to sign off on that. So
we're told, yeah.
Okay. Let's say allegedly.
No, I'm just being...
Yeah, let's be like neutral. Right. So therefore, if that's the case, then how has it got so out of hand? Or are they simply following on from a complaint by Burnley that they have to follow on from?
Look at this.
Look at this. Prep. Yeah. Go on then.
Scribbled notes.
Yeah, that's fine. Go on.
Chloe's just seen them because Chloe's doing some work for her masters, so that's what this is about, really.
Go on then.
But what you just said to me is reasonably spot on. Yeah. And because of COVID, there's a bit of grey area, isn't there?
Yeah.
Okay. And what gets broadcast or printed is the headline losses, isn't it? Oh, Everton lost £150 million in a particular year.
Yeah.
Okay. People should recognise, and I mean, Paul Joyce has said something today that's something to do with the stadium. Well, it's got nothing to do with profit and sustainability, infrastructure builds, stadiums and stuff like that. So you've got lots of journalists right now are guessing, right? So the numbers they tend to use are those big headline numbers.
Yeah.
You lost 100 and odd in this year, you lost 100, whatever.
Yeah.
In the financial years that ended in 2019, 2020 and 2021, we lost over 100 million in every single year.
Yeah.
That's where you get the 300 odd that we've lost.
Yeah.
Okay. But you've got allowances then.
Okay.
Like whatever you spend on the women's team doesn't count. Whatever you spend on, infrastructure, stadium development, those sorts of things don't count. And various other things don't count.
Right.
So the 100+ million we lost in 2019 was, quote, only 90-ish.
Because he knocks some off.
2020, which is where Burnley and Leeds in particular got really upset, of the nearly 150 million we lost, nearly 130 of it was attributed to COVID.
Yeah. Right.
So that year we only lost 12.
12 was okay, yeah.
Right. The following year, still a bit of COVID, we lost headline over 120, but we knocked 40 odd off, right? And therefore nearly 80 becomes the number. Now, the thing is, because of the way COVID has been treated, those 2 years are classed as one reporting period.
Nice, yeah.
So you basically take the average of them.
Okay,
Right?
yeah.
So the equivalent then becomes that in 2019 we lost 90-ish.
Yeah.
In 2020/21 we lost 45-ish.
Right.
And we don't know what we lost in 22.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
My guess, I mean, this is after deductions.
Yeah, yeah.
My guess is maybe 30-ish.
Okay.
Perhaps a bit less, perhaps a bit more.
Yeah.
But if you added those three numbers up, they're still above 105.
Yeah.
Because you've still got the 90 number in there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the key bit, which is where your story was, is, and I was doing this with Chloe, I fold my piece of paper over
Yeah.
so that the last year is 2021.
Yeah.
We were okay, weren't we? The Premier League said so.
Apparently so, yeah.
If we'd spent over 105 million in the previous 3 periods.
And we were okay.
And we were not sanctioned other than on the naughty step. We're going to look at everything.
Yeah.
If we then have another year where everything gets better, and in my view, we perhaps get down to a gross loss maybe of 45 to 55 million, a net loss of 30-ish, whatever. It's all going in the right direction. Of course, we're still over.
Yeah.
Because we were over before.
Yeah.
And the year that fell off was only we only lost 15 million in the year that falls off,
Nice.
which is 2018.
Yeah.
So technically, we're a bit worse off. You know, we had a running total of being about 45 million over where we need to be.
Nice.
And now we're 60 mil over. But they were okay with us being 45-ish million over. And you might say in this game, that's not a huge amount. Yeah, it's one player, sort of thing. And now all of a sudden, apparently all of a sudden, because people I speak to, and it's hard to get stuff out of the club, so you might have to get it out of people who think they've got it out of the club and so on. But the club were apparently genuinely surprised with the timing of it. And the Premier League did what they did to Man City. They didn't warn them. They just issued a press release. So there's a bit of showboating going on, isn't there? I think. So the timing seems quite likely is to do with the chief exec going in front of the DCMS. If it is that, and they're playing with the emotions of fans, for example, just because they don't want regulation, and the key is they don't want independent regulation.
Yeah.
So ask any business or number of businesses why they don't want to be regulated by someone who's independent, and the answer's pretty obvious. Because we don't want independent views to apply to us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the politics around this between the government, and remember the government's just the whole of Parliament, the Tory party, but the government in the whole saying you will have independent regulation. Yeah. And it'd be interesting to see what Richard Masters says, because I'm guessing he's going to appear before the DCMS, whatever it is, select committee or something, and say, well, we're doing this. Right? And one of the things he'll say they're doing, no doubt, is looking into Everton. But the reality is, really poor management, financial management, has left us in a place whichever way you choose to cut this, with huge relief given to you because of COVID, we still break the rules. And I think I'm fond of saying, am I not, of doing things right and doing the right thing. Yeah. And maybe the Premier League has to figure out what is doing things right and what is doing the right thing, because we all need to know when the result comes out what happened in 2022. If you're going to penalise us, that is, what happened in 2022 that made you penalise us when you didn't in 2021. And as far as I can see, and you'll have read it yourself, other Premier League football clubs are asking just that question. Because lest we forget, every single Premier League football club presumably in 2021 was told, you're clean, well done, you've abided by the rules. Yeah. And now one of them is getting told, oh, forget that, we're going to do you anyway. You know? So there's another 19 who might say, whoa, what about us then? You know.
The whole thing, well, what about the Richarlison money?
Well, we
were told to sell him before, but we had to sell him, so they put our Premier League status at risk.
Yes.
And then have still gone after us.
Yeah.
Because if Everton would have gone, you're going after us, but we ain't selling the Richarlison, so do what you want. He's staying.
Yeah.
Everton wouldn't be in the mess they're in.
That's right.
On the pitch.
Yeah. And bear in mind.
Off the pitch, yeah, of course.
Indeed. But bear in mind, and that's the point, and again, because we're debating it, doesn't really matter. And I always have to say this, I suppose. Someone like Paul, who blogs on this all the time, he'll have far more lucid versions of my fag packet here. And me and him had a brief chat yesterday. I don't think my numbers are a million miles away from his, which is good because he really looks closely. But even he, I'm sure, would say, yeah, maybe we've netted it down to 35 million quid. But that's after we sold Richarlison for 60.
Well, maybe.
So it would have been 100.
Well, there's a report out there that says Everton put the Delhi transfer down as 0 and Tottenham put it down as 40.
Oh, that's an interesting one, isn't it? And therefore, you have to play two. I've not heard that.
Well, it's been out there in Cato's. Someone in the comments has said, apparently we've included Delhi as 0, which is right, because other than wages, because we haven't paid anything for them. And Spurs have gone 40.
You see, it's a bit like we haven't seen the accounts. Are Tottenham's accounts out? Okay. So
only commenting on whatever.
So we want to see Tottenham's accounts, don't we? I just think personally, rightly or wrongly, and I'm not undermining anyone who's read what they've read, is there seems to be a lot of guessing going on at the moment.
Yeah, of course.
And until we see Everton's accounts and then potentially Tottenham's accounts, then we won't really know. And it'd be interesting to know if Tottenham were close to the line and the deal for Delhi made the difference. But generally speaking, when I've done deals, here's the game, right? When I've done deals back in the day, then I'll do a deal, say, with you to provide some services. Yeah. And I'm going to charge you, sorry, this won't be too boring, I'll just do it simplistically. Go on. I'm going to charge you 10 quid for doing something. Yeah. And I'm going to do it 10 times a year. Yeah. Okay, so every year I'm going to earn 100 quid.
100 quid off me, right?
And we signed a 3-year deal. What's my income going to be?
300 quid.
Right. That's Tottenham saying 300
300 quid. Yeah.
However, when I do the deal with you, you agree I'll charge you 10 quid, but you're not sure you'll do it 10 times a year. You expect to. Yeah. But you're not sure. So I'll always say, well, I want you to guarantee me a certain amount that for sure you're going to do, because I'm going to build something to deliver it. So you say, okay, I promise you it's going to be at least 5. Right? So what's my income going to be now?
150. Oh, well, 50.
Still 300.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Because you expect to do it. But the contract guarantees me 150. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So whoever's saying this about Delhi, because people seem to be homing in on Delhi, I suggest all they're doing is saying that if everything went well, from Tottenham's perspective, Delhi played for Everton, he stayed a certain amount of time, maybe we won things, maybe he played games instead of going hiding some whatever, it could be 40 million. But in actual fact, it's 0 until those kickers apply. And I think that's what's happened. Now, if Tottenham's accounts are out, then we'd know. But then the narrative in there might say, and this is what you'll see, guarantee this is what you'll see, and we sold Dele Alli to Everton for up to £40 million. And that'll be in the words, but it won't be in the numbers. The numbers will be 0. Because if it's not contractually guaranteed, it might not happen. Therefore, it's not real. So I don't get the Delhi one in the slightest. Just don't get it.
Just depends what people are reporting.
Well, people are guessing, trying to find out what's happened in 2022. And you did it in your intro there. You know who we bought. Yeah. Someone started a rumour it's something to do with transfers. Paul Joyce may be doing someone a favour by trying to detract from that and say, no, it's to do with the stadium. Paul must know, Paul Joyce, that stadium wouldn't be included. Yeah. There is a bridge between the two if you want to be really suspicious and Machiavellian and conspiratorial, which is we've put stuff down as stadium, which isn't.
And there was a war.
Well, yeah, and I just don't think we'd do that. I just don't think we would do that in the slightest, right? Because if we were going to do it, we'd do it so that we got back to 0, not back to we're still miles. We're still miles off the pace, yeah.
So Toby Larone says it won't just be a fine. Then Premier League needs to set a precedent, but then they have to do Chelsea as well, won't they? You've lost London 21 million, which won't happen either. So it won't. It'll
Chelsea's
be a fine.
Only 1 year.
It'll be a fine. I'm telling you. And then we'll see what happens at Newcastle, because obviously the Newcastle thing was deemed as illegal, a takeover. So they're going to be forced to sell it now, and Newcastle done? No, of course they're not. So The Premier League have got less power than me. The Blues says half the people reporting on it don't have a clue. Yeah, of course, because people are just going to guess, aren't they? People are just going to go, it's this, it's that, until it all comes out. And it's how long you keep this going, isn't it? Mm. It's how long you keep this going.
Spurs results are out, by the way.
Yeah, Keith Baxendale says the rules allow Spurs to count the 40 million as a sale and also allow us to count the cost over the period of Delhi's contract.
I don't know what he means.
No, if you agree a £40 million deal, then yeah, that's correct.
They haven't.
But they haven't. They've only agreed the deal doesn't kick in until it's all dependent on appearances, which means it's naught. That's just a fact. That's how it worked. Benny, I don't know. It was rushed through apparently, and it was the links to the Saudi government. It was out. The story was there last week or the week before. They apparently said there was no links between the two things, but apparently there is links between the two. So, and it was done, don't forget, it was done late. I mean, this is all out there. It was agreed without the Premier League clubs back, and it was agreed in the night, and the fella resigned the next morning. Yeah. Before it went back into the thing, because it was rushed through. Probably, maybe, allegedly, put them all out there, pressure from the government, or pressure on the government, whatever it was. And then there's lots of other stuff. The letter from PIF stating separate entity wasn't, though, was it? It's been proven the other week. There was big stories of it. You must have seen it.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
It was big news the other week, and it's going to an inquiry, so... But there's lots and lots and lots of stuff that's out there. So we'll see whether they go after everybody. The reality for us is, forget about everything else. Forget about... We're gonna get something because we deserve... Let's be honest, right? I'm coming at it one angle, going, they're using us a little bit, but in taking me Everton that's on, so they should as well. If we are losing money and no one's pulling it in line, they should come after us, shouldn't they? Absolutely, they should. My issue is just the way the rules are. The rules are set up to help a small number of teams, not everyone. That's where my problem with the Premier League, the profit and sustainability thing is. It's great going. You can all only spend the same amount of money, but yet we're giving the six at the top all the money. So all of them they've got to lose the same as you, John, but they're also getting 6 times as much as you.
That's because they're successful.
It's not just, though, is it? They were just awarded more international rights than anybody else. That should never have even been up for vote. That should have just been, mate, you play in our league, and you're getting the interest because it's the Premier League. So no, I'm not giving you. You're doing the same job as Southampton, who are at the bottom of the league. Well,
they changed it to be performance related. So by definition, City will always get more than.
Well, that's the way it is. But what happens
us, because we'll always be lower down the league than they are. Yeah.
There's just a lot of holes in it, and a lot of things that protect the big. Of course, it protects them. But if you're at the top, you want to make sure your position's guaranteed.
Well, of course,
don't you?
Yeah.
You don't want to. Yeah. This is why I love the likes of MLS, because no one's guaranteed. No matter how rich you are, you ain't guaranteed to be at the top, mate, end off, because they just give the best player here to you next season with different things, and all of that makes it a much better product for football fans, doesn't it?
It's one country, though.
Still brilliant, the way it's done. The model's brilliant. Yeah, but we've got a situation, the likes of Germany, haven't we, where Bayern Munich have won the league for 10 years on the run. They're more powerful than anyone else. Though. Well, they beat Dortmund next week, they're top again.
Exactly,
and the chances are they will then just win every game and win it. I hope Dortmund win it, but I'm just saying. All of the leagues which you look around, where the power base is there, the same teams win it every year.
Listen, there's a couple of things here.
But we have got... my big gripe, the two big gripes, the way the Premier League does stuff, so it protects a certain amount, but the biggest gripe is Everton themselves.
Absolutely.
That's the thing for me. What has gone on?
We are going down a rabbit hole, right? Yeah. When we start talking, as we are, about...
Well, I'm going down it. You'll stay outside. It just winds me up the way it's set.
The hole, right?
Go on.
Because you can use really... not quite abstract, but trivial examples, right? Players dive in penalty boxes.
Yeah.
So we're going to clamp down on that. Right? And any player who dives in a penalty box is going to get booked and maybe even, suspended.
Whatever, yeah.
So, look, an Everton player's done it, so we'll do that then.
Yeah.
And then it stopped.
Yeah.
And I think my genuine fear would be, and someone started this little segment about they need to make an example of somebody. Maybe they do. In fact, undoubtedly they do if people are breaching the rules. I mean, if you had a rule, for example, I'm just making this up on the hoof.
Yeah, go on.
But if you had a rule that said, you know what, if you want to spend more in a transfer window than your business turns over, you need our permission to do it first.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Chelsea couldn't have gone and done what they did.
No.
Because they would say, we don't think that's sustainable. Therefore, no. Right? We know UEFA have got the ump a little bit about some of this stuff because they've said, you know what, we don't care how long the contract is that you sign with somebody. Yeah, our rules are going to say only the first 5 years are what you can amortise over. Right?
Yeah.
You watch, no one will ever sign a deal now longer than 5 years. Will they?
No.
There might be 5+2 as an option.
That's the
other thing, by the way. If you look at Decore, that's not a commitment by Everton to have him. You know what I mean? Over the recent years, we've been amortising his contract over the term that he actually had, not the extra one. And so we can make our numbers look better by giving him an extra.
That was asked the other day. Can we amortise it over 4 because he had 4, or is it just the 3 that was guaranteed?
It's the first 3.
Just the first 3.
But when we exercise the +1, depending on when we exercised it, we may shave some money off our bottom line, right? As the loss, I mean. On the bottom line, as a profit.
That's a profit.
If there was £2 million left, and in the last year you'd lose £2 million, if you give him another year, you'd only lose 1, wouldn't you? Because you'd put the other one in the second year.
So you can.
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, absolutely. But where I was going with this, loads of analogies. VAR, right? It's not VAR's fault. It's the handball rule that's wrong. Right? The same applies here. I can wholeheartedly agree that this thing called profit and sustainability, it's about profit and it's about sustainability. Well, actually, all the propaganda is about sustainability. We do not want Premier League football clubs going into administration. We do not want them buying beyond their means. We do not want them crashing and burning, blah, 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 because rightly, that would damage the brand. And it's a worldwide brand. Therefore, we've put some rules in place to stop that from happening. So this could be, in a different world, this piece of paper which you can't see, but you know what it is. This is the top layer of, we're going to have a look at you because you're losing money. You're losing money consistently, i.e. over 3 years, and we'd like to have a really close look at you. Actually, the only thing we're going to look at you for is it sustainable?
Right, yeah.
And the guy who's worth 10 billion goes, yeah, it's sustainable. I can chip in 50 mil every year. I don't mind. And therefore, you don't get any punishment. Because this is just a flag that you may be on a slippery slope, right? Now, the interesting thing is, because there's loads of good statos out there, aren't there? And people are into the numbers and, even Ryan does stuff like this and what have you, who will quite rightly say, if it wasn't for these perhaps out-of-date rules, perhaps some Premier League clubs would have gone down. I don't mean into the Championship. Because this is curtailing, even Man City, it's curtailing. You can imagine how much Man City would spend if there was no limits at all. Or Newcastle, I get there was no limits at all.
I absolutely get there has to be rules in place. Me personally would be a spending thing, right? So Chelsea wouldn't be able to spend 600 million in 6 months.
Yeah, you'd have some measure.
So there would be a measure. Now, I don't care if that stops City or Liverpool or Newcastle or Everton, whatever. If there's a rule in place, I get that.
Are you American?
No.
Would you like to be?
Don't know. I haven't really thought about it.
Because you're about to speak, I think, just like an American owner would of a Premier League football club.
Okay, we'll see.
And I'll probably agree with you if you do.
Well, I mightn't. But what I was going to say was, I don't mind there being a cap in place of some sort. Wage cap would be tremendous. Or a measure, right? Every summer, football clubs can only spend £100 million.
Or whatever.
Right, whatever. Yeah. Now, if you've got Newcastle, quite clearly, they could spend 100 million, it seems. Right, I think the wealth is grossly exaggerated by them. Just because you're that rich doesn't mean you're putting it all in, does it? You know, whatever.
True.
Right, but Newcastle could Man City, use them because they're at the top, could quite easily spend 100 million. Arsenal could quite easily spend 100 million pound. Big owners. Liverpool maybe, I don't know, but big owners, right?
They could, but the owners might choose not to.
Not to, which is good. Fair enough. They're doing whatever, right? I get that, but the bit where I don't like is like what you've just said there, is that if we come to a situation, right? If we come, leave it there, mate, I will ask now. If you come to a situation where it is a bit like Everton, or it might be West Ham, or it might be whoever.
Yeah.
But in this situation, it's Everton, right? If you've got an owner that goes, I absolutely guarantee we've lost this money here, but I absolutely guarantee that I will take this debt on rather than the football club. So this football club is not going to go out of business. It's on me.
Sure.
Right? Then that, to me, should be all it's about. Because it was only ever... Don't forget, this was put in generally. It wasn't to stop Man City. I've seen things... European FFP was to stop Man City and PSG because all of a sudden the estate owned football
doing what they
clubs.
wanted.
Right, so that was... But the Premier League one wasn't. The Premier League was on the back of Portsmouth, really. And Portsmouth, who was spending, and everyone knew, I mean, a club that got 19,000 was giving Jermaine Defoe 100 grand a week contract, and there was about 6 or 7 of them. It just wasn't sustainable at that time. I get that. So you look and go, right, like you've just said, you've got a benefactor who will guarantee we won't go out of business. It ain't great, because basically every year that we lose 50 million or 60 million, your profit, your bank account's coming down and down and down and down and down.
Yeah.
So we have to turn the ship. Yeah. I've got no issue with that. That to me should be how it's done. Now, some people will go, sorry, John, you can come back now. Some people will go, as an owner, I'm not prepared to lose 300 million. So the club has to. We stop buying. We sell.
Absolutely.
Him, and we deal with it.
Absolutely.
But if we've got an owner...
We've talked about this on the sofa so many times.
Exactly, we have, haven't we?
Not rocket science.
That's where my thing with the rules are. That's not me saying Man City, Newcastle, Everton, if Usmanov that took over, should be allowed to spend 700 million every transfer window. I don't agree with that either, because that then to me lends itself to, we'll go and play in a Super League then, where you can all do it.
See, there are multiple ways, right, of achieving what, and by the way, I agree with pretty much all of that. And I can imagine American owners totally agreeing with you, because they come from a sporting regime which is about trying to rebalance the league or the division every single season to keep it competitive. I mean, Formula One are doing it right now. The teams who finish lowest down in the league last year, if you will, get the most wind tunnel time. Thus meaning they can catch up
a bit, yeah.
So they're capping how much you can spend, and they're giving benefit to the teams lower down the league, if you will. And so what you see is, Fernando Alonso on bloody podiums, for crying out loud. Because his car...
I'm not sure what that means. Is he not great?
Oh, he's a long-time world champion.
He's been around forever. I know the name.
But he was in a car that wasn't very good.
Oh, okay.
Under the new rules, his team got to see what the Red Bull looked like and sort of copy it, but also get wind tunnel time that Red Bull didn't get. Yeah. And so on. So you can come up with levers and pulleys to make the world a better place, right? Now, you talk about if the owner wants to put money in, he can, or she can. Well, they can already. It's quite a modest sum. Yeah. So you could easily say, and you can do hybrids, because hybrids are popular, aren't they? Not all electric, we'll just go hybrid. And say, well, we're going to have a regime that says on one side of the house is things like your commercial income, your this, your that, the other, and that ends up with either profitable or not, right? And then over here, you've got a number that your owner or owners can put in, and maybe that's limited as well, to make that look better, okay? And the problem is, though, if you do that in a truly objective way where everyone's equal, because you talked a few moments ago about, well, if the overseas rights currently are whoever wins the league gets more money than the bottom team who gets relegated, but you want it all to be the same, right? Which is okay.
But that's what it was.
Yeah, I know.
But they've changed it.
I know, and we could talk about why they've changed it, because the 6 who didn't get their own way kicked up a fuss. Yeah. And I'm sorry, Mr. Premier League, you needed to have told them to off if they didn't like.
They should have.
You really did.
Should
the
have
tail
chased
is
them.
wagging the dog, right?
Should have chased
anyway, but if you have that, which is fundamentally income is equal, then the cost measures should be equal as well. Now, unless you made those absolute numbers, like you can spend X on players, you can spend Y on something else. Therefore, if Man City turn over 600 million and they're allowed to spend 100 million on players, and Everton turn over 200 million and we're allowed to spend 100 million on players, over time you'll get a balancing, won't you?
Yeah.
Okay. And if
the other thing, you can give back to the fans a bit.
Of course. And if the gap is dealt with by the owner, who's got a problem, right? Not loans, by the way. Gifts.
No, gifts, yeah.
Right? Okay. And of course, the reason that American owners would like that is that once you get up near the top, you should stay there because you've got a competitive advantage. All you've got to do is maintain it. That's easy to say, but Man United did it for a long time. But you'll end up with a thing called profit. For the bigger clubs, the bigger turnovers, because they're restricted on what they can spend it on, and therefore they end up with profit. That profit, then you could have rules about how it's distributed.
But my thing would be then you'd be able to give back to the fans. So if you're, because let's not, again, I know we've moved away slightly, we'll go back onto Everton.
It's getting really... Yeah.
No, but because I'm trying to explain to people my issue with profit and sustainability as it is.
No, I agree with it.
But if you've got, without us, as
fans,
right, the game's not. We saw that in COVID.
Absolutely.
The games were a shell of a football match played in a stadium that was nothing. The results were all over the place. It was just it was a boring television.
It'd be much more cost effective without fans, though, wouldn't it? Because you just need 100 odd by 100 odd
bit of
grass.
Yeah. Training grounds.
Yeah, training grounds would do.
But
here's Everton playing Liverpool in the 287th Merseyside derby, live from Finch Farm.
There you go, done. Right,
and you don't need fans. Put them all in with CGI later. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, if you've got, without that, it ruins the game.
Of course it does.
And therefore, but what's happening is fans are being priced out all the time. We're getting told with our new stadium, it's going to go up again. It's going to go up again. Everywhere you look, and yet the whole country is struggling with food, energy bills, blah, 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 blah. If there was something in where clubs actually didn't spend as much because they weren't allowed to, like you've just said, there would be some, and that profit should really go back in. So it should be more like Germany, whereas a season ticket for Borussia Dortmund was 240 quid or 230 quid.
Listen, if
we should all get tickets for 30 quid.
If we are, as fans, right, sitting down with a piece of paper and saying, how would we like it to be, right? We could come up with a regime, and you've articulated a fair amount of it now. Perhaps we should write it down and say the way would be.
This is it, yeah.
But, of course, once you create an environment where the more successful clubs will actually make a real profit, i.e., let's not call it profit, let's call it a surplus. They'll have money they can't spend. And let's pretend, say it's Man City, whoever won the league last year, so it was City, let's say City. So at the end of our new world order, where you're not allowed to give it to players, because that's where it is all going, players and agents, things like that. It's inflationary. The more money the Premier League generates, the more the agents and the players want. So let's cut them off at the knees. Say, you know what, lads, 100 grand a week is enough.
Yeah, you're done.
You know, Jack Grealish, man, you're getting 400 grand a week for wearing a pair of football boots. You do not need to be paid by Man City. You just need to be in a successful team on the field wearing your Nike boots so that Nike or Puma. Hang on a second, I was getting it. I know who it is.
Go on.
Your Nike or your Puma boots, because I'm a Puma person.
Yeah.
So you can show off, and that's the airtime that they want. So you could actually, Jack, play for City for nothing. As long as you've got this, whatever, right? But anyway, the point being, if at the end of the season, City turn over 600 million, blah-de-blah-de-blah, they make £200 million profit, you could easily have a rule within the Premier League or whatever that says half your profit needs to be reinvested in the business. Oh, by the way, you can't do it with players because we've already captured it.
Yeah.
And one of those would be by reducing your ticket prices. For example, the other 100, you can give it to your owners, your shareholders, dividends, call it what you will.
And don't forget when I said...
So you create a surplus, you have a retained profit, or use it for good causes, for example. You know, in Everton's case, it might be go and give 50 million quid to Everton in the community and see what it can do with it.
Because
you can't use it on the
city.
Yeah, you can't use it on the football pitch, and so on and so forth. And over time, and this is freakonomics type stuff, over time, the behaviours of all those football clubs would change.
Of course it would.
And it would probably get to the, if you did a rule that says every profit over 100 million, you have to give to good causes, they'd all magically earn 100 million and a penny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so instead of trying to measure outcomes, try to stimulate a change in behaviour. That's what it should be. And it's not going to happen at all in a competitive market. But the Premier League is very dominant because of the money it's got. But how long have City been going? How long have they had financial power over everybody? How many Champions Leagues have they won?
Might win it this year.
Yeah, but none. So they become, and that almost becomes part of their defence. Well, we haven't screwed the market because we haven't won the biggest prize. And the biggest prize has been won with countries, Spain, who've got less buying power than we've got, but they've got historical heritage.
Yeah, but Chelsea and Liverpool have both won it in the last 5 years.
But you know what I mean, right? You do know what I mean. So I think the end is coming. And we talked about it offline. Financial fair play we have known for a number of years. I mean, I don't know how long Sasha Ryzansev's been out of Everton now, but it's probably a year or more. And he was telling the Shareholders Association the year before that it's changing.
Let me ask
you. It hasn't changed.
Let me ask you this then: do you think part
of the can down the road
part of what Everton's problem was they anticipated that change? Because you remember Carlo Ancelotti saying, "We know it's changing." This is Carlo Ancelotti. We know when he was Everton.
Maybe
we know it's changing.
Maybe.
And he also then said, "The Premier League have got bigger issues to go after than Everton Football Club on their financial fair play." I just wonder if Everton gambled a little bit on those changes happening, and they didn't happen.
I don't know, and I've certainly talked on EBM in the past. I might have talked on your sofa here about you push the rules as far as you can,
go, yeah.
And if you can get away with going right up to the line, maybe a little bit over it, then that gives you a competitive advantage. And it's crystal clear, is it not, that for all the financial mismanagement the football clubs had, it presumably had some smart guys with big fat economics degrees or whatever, mathematical degree and so on and so forth, and lawyers with legal degrees and so on and so forth, that allowed us to claim a huge amount of relief because of COVID. Okay? Which probably... technically was legit. Doing the right thing is not the same as doing things right. And so we've quote got away with it. So maybe who knows, maybe the Premier League been after us ever since. We come up with some good cute numbers and they couldn't get the way out of it. They've got Burnley and Leeds screaming at them. But if I'm Leicester or Chelsea even maybe in the future years, and certainly Aston Villa, I'm watching what happens to Everton here, because we're right up against the line as well, and whatever they do to us becomes the benchmark, doesn't it? I just fear, as many Everton fans will, that they think that they can make an example of us and not necessarily have to repeat it. Hence, we could call this the Nias effect, couldn't we? Anyway, but your view is no points deduction.
I think we'll get a fine. I think we'll get we might end up with, you can only have 23 men in your squad next year.
Transfer restrictions. Well, yeah, I mean...
Like, the question, could this be for the COVID year, and they think we lied based on new accounts?
No idea.
We won't know, will we, till the accounts come out, I think.
No idea. And I show Chloe this, there's things scribbled here about, you try and do the Sherlock on it and say, okay, they've insisted, which is I think why Ped's written that on the whiteboard, that the issue is in 21-22. So everybody will look at what happened in 21-22, won't they? Hence the things about Delhi or the stadium.
But that was it, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I'm going to say. Yeah. But when you exhaust those, in the absence of seeing the accounts, and I think we have to keep coming back to, there's got to be a goddamn reason why this goddamn football club has not released these goddamn accounts, right? For us all to see.
3 times, John's three goddams in the same sentence, John.
Man City, when they were done by UEFA, they were punished not for the accounts. They got punished for hiding the accounts.
That's right, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm getting to what you said here. So when you look at 2022 and say, we can't, apart from the fact clearly we've lost money and therefore, but there's nothing there that say we're more likely to get done now than we did last year. Then you will look in the previous period, wouldn't you, and say, well, what did we say in there that might not have been true?
Yeah.
And I think I alluded to it before that maybe, I don't know, actually, I'll repeat it now. If I said it on air, I'm repeating myself. Maybe, just maybe, which I think what Ped's suggesting with the prompt, that we've done something in these accounts that draws attention to something we've done in previous accounts. And maybe it's drawn attention to the COVID claims. Who knows? In other words, some of the deductions for COVID perhaps weren't.
If they can't,
what they look like.
If they can't say that wasn't that though.
Well, I'm assuming because it was such a high profile, big fat numbers, sure, Premier League looked at them really closely. Yeah. And then they briefed their own shareholders that there was no case for Everton to answer. And Burnley got relegated and said, well, we don't need to sue you no more because we've stayed up.
Down, yeah.
Burnley are on the way back, so maybe they've stimulated, there they are again, still breaking the rules. And, we've suffered a year in the Championship, maybe. But Burnley aren't squeaky clean anyway. They were late with their accounts. But it's speculation. We don't know.
Keith says the things you're talking about now, are they not stuff an independent regulator may get round to? That's why the Premier League doesn't want it. They diminish them as a massive profit-making company. If a regulator says, well, this should be getting put back into the game and this should be getting... Would that happen?
I think there's a couple of things here. Regulation depends what the regulation's put in place for, right? If you look at the energy industry, when private and then started getting regulated back in they went through deregulation first, yeah? But fundamentally the regulator's job there was to make the market competitive. So yeah, it could be that you would say to an independent regulator, we would like you to make this marketplace called the Premier League more competitive.
Yeah.
And may visit how that could be achieved. Yeah. We're told, and we all know it won't happen in real life, that there'll be a significant input from fans. The so-called fan-led review wasn't particularly fan-led, was it?
No.
Because many of the things you've spoken about, if fans really got their act together, we would force change as a fan base. I don't mean Everton, I mean
fans.
Everybody.
Yeah, fans. Yeah.
And we've looked at the campaigns that Everton fans have been doing, which have matured dramatically over the last 6 months from, a lot of noisy people walking down the street to people operating to a specific plan, managing to straddle that line between being critical of the leadership of the football club, but totally behind the team itself and the manager and so on. If that was enhanced to be all 20 Premier League clubs or all 92 higher tier football clubs, and we basically went under a banner of this is our game. It's our game, and we want it to be managed in a way that makes it more transparent and actually more competitive. Sadly though, the treacherous Six fans would say, well, that's just because we're winning things, and so you would not necessarily get everyone pulling in the same way. But let's see. Well, yes, of course it is, because but there's plenty of independent advisors, regulators, and so on, who depends what you mean by independent, because political pressure brought to bear, and I don't mean by politicians, but led by a King's Council who's got a reputation for wanting to get to the right answer, and he's more about making it better in the future than punishing you for what you've done in the past. You would expect that the report should produce some clarity around where we've broken the rules, whether the oversight being provided by the Premier League was adequate or not. In other words, are they part of the problem? And what happens going forward? It's really difficult for me as an Evertonian to sound impartial and join Baz in saying, and my conclusion therefore is that Everton should take a modest fine for being naughty.
No, I just think how can you be points deducted when
I'm not leaping to points.
No, but I'm saying, right? How can you be given the points deduction when someone's been looking over your shoulder, forces you to sell your biggest asset to comply, and then comes back in, and then it's really the first time they've ever been put forward to a proper panel and then go, yeah, and we're giving you the biggest punishments, when they're already fighting a case against another team in the country who's got over 100 charges,
exactly.
118 charges. And they know that they'll probably not get anywhere with. You can't.
We've got a player with 300 charges who's just made his debut for England, right? Who's pleaded guilty. We're talking about a sport where the sort
it's
of thing,
contradictory.
Yeah, which you may think are morals, right? Don't really apply because is City and Everton getting charged in the timescales that they've been charged conveniently around the time when the Premier League and its chief exec was under pressure? Is that just circumstance? It just happened to be then. But yes, the mitigation that our lawyers are going to sit in front of the independent body is clearly going to be what you just said. We did everything that was asked of us. The outcome is what it is. They told us if we did everything that they said, we wouldn't be punished again. And they have. And when they chose to punish us, which is fundamentally a referral, which is a charge to you, chairperson, they never rang us up and told us. They never wrote to us. They issued a press release. It's showboating. Yeah. You need to be more serious, Premier League, about what you're trying to do here and who you're doing it to. Because I've got to believe impartial observers cannot believe that the way a football club finds out or a business finds out that it's logically been sanctioned or alleged to have broken the rules and therefore will be sanctioned by the regulator, which is actually the runner of the league, is they find that out through a press release. That's not best practice. Keith did the same to Man City as well.
Keith says the punishment for a club going into administration was 9 points. We can't be looking at anything like that. You're absolutely right.
No, absolutely.
Bill Cummins says the joke is we're getting done for a competitive advantage, having spent nothing for 2 seasons and are in our second relegation battle. What competitive advantage?
Well, I'll tell you the competitive.
And going last one. Just another internet bod says Chelsea had apparently the biggest COVID losses at just over 200 million, and the Premier League recorded losses of 1.38 billion for COVID. So,
the competitive advantage we've gained is we didn't get relegated. That's what Burnley would say. If you'd abide by the rules, you'd have probably got relegated.
See,
but no one knows, it's just opinion.
Again, my thing is about the sustainability and about having the guarantor. So Everton, in my opinion, it should have been the Premier League going to Everton and going, right, you're over this thing. You're over this margin that we have set you. And the only way you avoid whatever it's going to be,
a tariff for punishment,
whatever it is, right, is your owner has to take this money or match this loss and kind of clear this thingy. That guarantees you then his commitment. So if Everton went to far up and we're losing £60 million, say, in this year because of losses, and the only way for this football club not to have any kind of thing done to it is you basically have to gift the football club that money, whatever, because then that owner is keeping you sustainable if he wants to. If he doesn't want to keep you sustainable, then the club is punished. That's how I think it should be.
Okay, well, in that sense, if I just modify what you say a little bit, the owners, I own a teeny weeny little bit of Everton, right? But if you do a cash call, to shareholders, that's all shareholders.
Nice.
It's not just the guy.
Nice. Yeah.
And Farhad didn't own 90% of it in 2019 when we lost headline over 100 million. Okay, so when you're looking at this, you say, okay, me and you are playing the game. You're Everton, I'm the Premier League. As you've just lost 112 million, you've knocked 20-ish off for good reasons that are allowed. You lost around 90 million in one season. You're allowed to lose 105 over 3. Okay, so your current run rate is over 105 because you lost 15 last year. What are you doing next year? What are you going to do about it? That will be documented somewhere if it happened. Now, of course, the following year, COVID hit. Okay, so you get a bit of wriggle room around that.
Yeah.
But our run rate was a bigger loss. Okay, we got a load of deductions, which took it way down to 12, right?
Yeah.
But you look at the run rate, okay? And our run rate of losses are like over 100 million, over 100 million, over 100 million, 3 consecutive years. During that period, the board of directors of this football club decided they didn't like general meetings anymore.
Yeah.
Why not? Because you don't want shareholders asking these questions. Well, guess what? The Premier League are asking them now instead. And that's ridiculous.
I'd rather answer to my shareholders first.
Of course, right? And a degree of transparency. I mean, you talk about how all this works, right? And how it should work perhaps going forward. Well, we can all read the accounts of every single Premier League club as they get published, right? We might have to wait for most, if not all, including Everton by the sounds of it, until they land in Company's House. But we can all see them. You know, people like Paul do it for Everton. There's probably a Paul who does it for Arsenal, and Paul,
of course,
and so on and so forth. I think it'd be fab if everybody could just go to one place and see it all, laid out for everybody to see. Other leagues do it, not necessarily what I'm talking about, but other leagues, you know, regulators have to sign off transfers and all sorts of things. Make it so every transfer has to be signed off every time by the man in the middle, the regulator, if you want to call him that, or she, of course. Because what we seem to have here is a football club who are saying, well, they haven't said it yet, but hopefully this is what they will say. Listen, we think we did everything you asked us to, therefore we shouldn't be punished. We know we're over 105, but we knew that last year. And you said, no, first, if you like, penalty was naughty boys. You've got to ask our permission for everything now. It's like asking your mum and dad, can you go out?
Yeah, of course.
You were home late last night. Right? You never get to go out again unless you stick to the rules.
Stick to the rules, yeah.
So we think we've stuck to the rules, and now you're punishing us. Now, if we do the Sherlock Holmes thing on it, that's the Everton view. The Premier League's view is, presumably, we let you off the first time. You agree to do some things, you haven't done them.
Yeah, but
you haven't done.
I'd get that if
you banged to rights, you promised, and you haven't.
No, you banged to rights if it's 22-23.
Yeah, no, 21-22.
No, but 21-22, which is last year when we nearly went down. They were looking over our shoulder. We had to sell Richarlison. So if they said to us, right?
No, I don't think they had to. Sorry, go on, carry on.
It's out again today. They had to sell Richarlison. It was an agreement, right? They had to get that money in. So the Everton have done it. So if I'm Everton, I'm going, you're putting my Premier League future.
Hang on a second. Let's stop you, because I think this is important, right?
Go on.
It's out there right now that we had to sell.
It's been mentioned again today. Go on then.
Okay.
Yeah, go on then.
Well, I've already said journalists are guessing all over the place.
Okay, go on then.
Right? But we all accept that Everton had to generate income through player sales to satisfy the obligation that we made to the Premier League.
Yeah.
We're all agreed on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I'm questioning is whether selling Richarlison satisfied the obligation or not.
Okay.
Yeah. So we say we've sold a player for 60 million quid, but in the agreement we had to sell players
for 100.
For 100.
Yeah. No, fair comment.
So it was 2 from 3 of Pickford, Richarlison, and DCL. Yeah. Pickford, whatever, didn't happen. Richarlison went. Okay, he wanted to go. DCL's injured. Now the mitigation. Players are injured, might be a worthwhile mitigation. Who knows? It was our intent, and we couldn't for this reason. If I'm the Premier League, I say, listen, at the end of the day, right, we want you to rebalance these books. Yeah. And the only way you could materially impact it big, you can't do it through match day income, all those sorts of things, is by selling players. So you should have sold more.
Yeah.
That's VAR saying you're offside by your big toe.
Yeah.
Right?
No, well, but then Everton should have expected that then, shouldn't he?
Yeah. So let it be interesting.
Everton are going to have to sell a player again this summer, I think.
Yeah.
From what I've been led to believe. So.
Well, again, don't forget, while all this is going on, the owner, the majority shareholder, so we'll call him owner.
Yeah.
The owner is seeking investment to help fund the stadium. And we've got people like MSP Sports Capital, and we've talked about it more than once on the sofa about, well, if I was working for MSP Sports Capital, right now I'm thinking I want a bigger percentage for less money. Not just a bigger percentage for the same money. Yeah. Or
then let's.
It's a buyer's market, and I would give you a really hard deal about it. So as a football club, you tell me what I'm about to say you don't agree with. One, through our behaviour, we convinced over the last year other football clubs that we had to sell players and therefore they could screw us down on a deal. Two, we've convinced potential investors we're desperate for investment, therefore they can screw us down on a deal.
Yeah.
Both of those are true. Both of those tell you that the people within the football club do not understand or are not able to exercise their understanding in a way to try and mitigate the difficult circumstances they find themselves in. And the behaviour, which ultimately becomes shut the door, turn the light off and hope it goes away, doesn't work.
Yeah.
The Piper, and all that, there's no hiding place.
Well,
right?
That was what I was going to say. We'll finish them because obviously we're going to do questions directly to you on Premier. But we'll
cool. An hour's gone.
An hour already. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe as well. As a football, let's move away from the sustainability because that's where my biggest gripe is with the sustainability.
I can understand it. Yeah.
Because I think the same competition, different rules apply to different teams. And has done over the past period.
We'll
I think there's well, that's fine.
Yeah.
I think there's a better way. It should be done.
There's definitely a better way,
right? But
absolutely,
regardless of that, I just want to put the spotlight onto Everton Football Club for a minute because in this last hour I have been, in and out of that with making it feel almost as if I have fully blamed the Premier League when it isn't that. That's all. But we have been in a situation. You've given me the numbers there where we are losing.
Too much money
Ridiculously. And you're hearing things like another 100 million lot. Look, I don't go into the numbers. I'm not an accountant. I don't do it that way. I don't look at it that way. But even I know that losing 100 million doesn't sound good.
It's not good. When you only turn over 200 million.
Exactly, right. So therefore, I would know that if Everton said to me, just go and run the club for a year, I'd think, right, we've got to get rid of it. We're losing this money and we need to make better use of our money that we have, which Everton haven't done. 50 million, 40 million for the player, for players you don't even know are going to work, instead of buying that one for 3 million you can turn in a profit.
Sacking 25 people so you can recruit 25 people. Sacking managers so you can get new managers.
But make better choices. Having 79 heads of departments and stuff. Everton Football Club are run by the board, a CEO, and they've got an owner. And yet we continue to lose money. And there's been no changes made anywhere.
Yep.
Right? And we're obviously going to get the accounts very soon. And we're going to see the board how much they're paid, because they're paid to make decisions that help the football club improve. And yet we've heard nothing from the football club. We've heard nothing from the football club for it's nearly April, since January. Really, we've seen a statement the other day. Fine, they put a statement. We won't comment again. For whatever. Fine. There's poor communication or engagement, not communication. Say engagement. Poor engagement. And with that leaves lots of these gaps which are filled by lots of other people. But this is why there is a protest before every home game. And it, as you've just said, it's got better and better and better.
True.
Because it is well thought out, well planned. It's a peaceful protest. It's controlled. People are not these screaming, angry, veins bulging out the neck Neanderthals that people like to paint people who aren't happy with whatever it is, right? These are people who are going, no, my football club, it's not being run correctly for a number of years, and this is just further evidence the other day, further evidence that these people who are not happy with the current situation have got every right not to be happy. We have changed from a team, and we've seen it in our lifetime, that won the league, won trophies, has been in Europe, and should be, in our opinion, fighting for Europe, fighting for trying to get it to win stuff, has just become less and less watered down version of a team that's for the second year running stuck in the middle of a relegation battle. We've sold all of our exciting players. We've sold all the players who people, kids want the names on the back of the shirt, them kind of players have all gone. We don't even bring young players in, develop them and sell them off and improve that way. And we're losing money on the back of it. Yes, there's a nice shiny new stadium coming. Brilliant. And it'll be fantastic and it'll be a different experience. But without the club going in the right direction, it's not really going to mean much anyway. So there can be no return for this board now, can there, really? Because how could you be part of this but come out and convince people that everything's all right? And we've had 100 root and branch reviews and we're run brilliantly. This is just further evidence, isn't it, that we'll run anything but brilliantly?
Further evidence washes over me.
Okay.
Mainly because I think if you were doing an indictment on the performance of Everton's board, you wouldn't need much more evidence. You don't need more evidence. I mean, I part of me has sympathy for them because they're clearly not good enough. Individually, they're probably in over their heads, and they sit, in a situation where, in many respects, they don't know what to do, and you can go to third-party advisors, and I suspect we spent a huge amount of money on not in the terms of these millions upon millions, but for a business of its size, we've probably spent significant amounts of money with third-party advisors. But ultimately, you can't outsource decision-making. And this board appears, from afar, not to have made decisions when they needed to have been made. I don't think it's necessarily that they've made wrong decisions. They probably have, but it's worse than that. You make a decision in the moment that you think is the right thing to do, and it turns out not to be. At least you made a decision. I think what we've done too often over the years, if not decades, is just thought, we'll ride this out, whatever it is, and it will be better. And if anyone on the football club, people who are paid probably to front these things up in public, want to come and front it up in public, we'll give you a platform, won't we?
Absolutely.
But that's tertiary because they're not going to come, right? No. But the reason they won't come is because I think much of this is indefensible. And, on Twitter yesterday, I had a little bit of a dialogue which I've continued privately with Al Myers, because he was talking about responsibility, and I'm a pedant for the difference between accountability and responsibility. There are many, many, many people at Everton Football Club who are responsible for the mess that we're in, but there's only 4 of them who are accountable, truly accountable, because they're the ones who sit at the top table and have the authority to make decisions. And we've talked in the past about whether they've abdicated that responsibility for making decisions because the owner interferes. I actually think, personally, the board's a bigger problem than the owner, because part of their problem is they haven't controlled the owner, and that's part of their job. So it's really hard to see how any of them can ever be in a position of decision-making in this football club, having spent so many years being in the position and not made those decisions. And I'm sure if they hear this, they'll think I'm being really harsh, and any of them can give me a call, really. And I will have sympathy for you as an individual. And we need to remember, we're not having a go at a person called Bill, or a person called Denise, or a person called Grant, or a person called Graham. We're having a go at the chairman, the chief exec, the finance director, and the non-executive director. And each of those could be supported by more of the same.
I'm having a go at the owner as well. The owner can't walk away from this.
So you can have...
As an owner.
Listen, mate, it works all ways, right? Because clearly the owner could have imposed change, right? I wouldn't surprise me if he's trying to impose it right now and he's failing to impose it for whatever reason. And that's another thing we could debate till the cows come home. But ultimately, it's the board who decided not to have general meetings. It's the board who've decided when to release the accounts. It's the board who've decided not to turn up for FAB meetings, not to engage with the Shareholders Association as frequently as you said you would, and so on and so on and so forth. And I think the indictment, which is clearly a body of evidence, which won't be looked at by this commission, but is looked back at almost every day by Everton fans, is you could have done better. You could have communicated. You could have used the FAB. You could have used the Fans Forum. You could have used the Shareholders Association. You could have responded to the 27 campaign, which became something else, and it is what it is now. Many of these organisations have issued open letters to the owner, open letters to the board, so on and so forth. None of these things get a response, right? So you're not there no more. You're just names on a chart, okay? And I think the real fear for people who can see where this could go is this isn't rock bottom yet. It's not rock bottom yet.
What does rock bottom look like?
Rock bottom is this persists. No matter what the manager does and the players do, the off-field stuff is going to contaminate everything that goes on inside the football club. We are heading towards the next 12 to 18 months, going into perhaps the greatest stadium that's ever been built in this country, if you take in location and all that sort of stuff. And I, for one, right now, I'm not particularly enjoying it, you know. We should be embracing it as being a great legacy getting built at Goodison. Who's going to fund that legacy? That glorious legacy that's supposed to be getting funded when we leave Goodison and building community assets and all those sorts of things. Are they at risk? Because if we're losing £100 million a year, we're not going to be spending stuff on money on stuff we don't have to. That's discretionary spend. You've talked about it on the sofa. Lots of people will lose their jobs. And an objective leadership team would have already realised this a long time ago. And yet the owner sits in front of the chair of the FAB and talks about how we're recruiting people, we're going to recruit more. It's almost like he's been briefed. Saying we're recruiting people sounds good. No, we want to see the bloody numbers getting compliant. And then we want to see the leadership in our football club beating the hell out of the Premier League about these rules are wrong. But you can only get agreements in the moral high ground if you're complying with the existing rules. I've said for decades in my day job, because I've worked under regulated environments in financial services, energy and utilities, and media, right? I'll comply with the rules, but that doesn't stop me fighting to get them changed. When you're not complying with them, no one listens to you. Why would they? It's sad, really sad. A great football club is withering on the vine. It really is. And so rock bottom is reputational, but it's also sporting. And all them players who we bought, they'll just toddle off somewhere else, won't they? But we'll be here again. Fans, we're the ones who'll be left. And it's depressing, man. It really is. Sorry.
Right.
Sorry about that.
Let's leave it there then.
I'll STF you. Yeah.
It's obviously gonna. Well, listen, it's gonna run and run, isn't it? Until we get some kind of clarification, and until we know what happens.
Listen, mate. By the end of this week, they will have submitted the accounts to Company's House.
Okay.
Company's House will post that they have them, and they'll be available probably about a week later.
Okay.
We'll know. And hopefully we read them and go, not to see here, move along. But I suspect that's not going to be the case.
That's right. That can't be the case, can it? Richard Parr says, afternoon, lads. If the Premier League knew we were in all sorts of financial difficulties, why did they hold our hand and lead us through all the transfers over the past 2 years? Why didn't they advise us not to buy McNeil and Maupay, just for an example? Bainey says, welcome to the fiasco.
They're not in the books, those two players, by the way.
No, not at the moment. Yeah. Bainey says,
part of this season's numbers being poor.
Welcome to the fiasco that is Everton Football Club. We knew a couple of years ago that we were in FFP bad books, right? Weren't we under special measures? That basically meant the Premier League had to sanction everything we did as kind of punishment. This bloody club, his words, lack of communication with us just makes this even more infuriating. This crap has to stop. The owner needs to get a grip, whether it's him, the board, or both. Something has to be done.
No, he's right, because if more effective communication and engagement had happened, and Everton fans and perhaps the wider football fan in this country was totally behind these silly rules getting changed, then we'd be in a better place than we're in now, wouldn't we? But
that's not saying there shouldn't be rules, because there should. That's not saying. I just think the sustainability side of it needs more not clarification. It needs to be looked at slightly differently than what it is. It's not a case of this or this. If you've got someone who's going to put their money into keep, that's always how football clubs were run in the past, weren't they? They were run by local businessmen with money, and they funded it to stop the club being in those financial difficulties. You can still have that kind of thing with, you know, spending caps as a league, but there could be more than what I said, 100. It could be 200 million. Therefore, a lot of clubs can't spend that. But if you created that money, you could. But also, if you are sustainable for what because you've got an owner that will ensure you do not go out of business. That was what it was there for, to protect it. But I'm going to finish, because we've got, if you're a Premier member, I'll put a post up, get your questions in. John's going to do a special in a bit with your direct to your questions. But one line everybody should remember, everybody, from when the Super League stuff was there. A lot of journalists,
I know what you're
and a lot of the Premier League come out and said,
I agree,
fans can't be punished with over points deductions. That was the Premier League's thing. Fans of the Big Six can't be punished, because it wasn't them that tried to leave. All the journalists, you can't punish fans for trying to ruin English football. Can't punish fans. Well, therefore, you can't be given points deductions, because we certainly didn't agree to Everton Football Club doing what they did. So let's see if they remember that in their example. If there is a case to answer, Everton, of course, still say that they are fully compliant. They've been compliant. They're very surprised by the Premier League's actions. Everton have worked hand in hand with the Premier League.
There's a thing.
So we'll see.
Can I have the final say?
Go on, you have the final say.
Because I think you just hit something really important, because we're being negative, because there's no nice way to make these numbers look, and whether we get sanctioned or not doesn't change the underlying poor performance of both the numbers themselves and the people accountable for delivering them. That's the board, right? But if Everton have the evidence that says simplistically, very simplistically, that at the end of the review of the 2021 financial results, we were clean, and another set of results have come out, which are imminently 21. Well, Premier League have seen them, 21-22, and we've got the evidence that they were marking our homework, etc., etc., etc. And we had the sense to make sure there was documented evidence every step of the way that we were doing what we were doing, either with their approval or with their awareness and all that good stuff. Then this independent commission is going to find us not guilty.
There you go. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't. If you're a Premier member, get ready to get your questions directly to John. Thanks for watching. See you later. Guys.